Beloved brothers and sisters, we gather beneath the shelter of the Most High, not trusting in our own strength, but in the faithful mercy of God, who hears the cry of the wounded heart. There are days when words become arrows, when tongues are sharpened like blades, when false witness and quiet hatred walk among us as if they were companions. In such hours, the soul grows weary and the spirit bends low. Yet the Lord who formed the ear also hears. The Lord who shaped the mouth also judges every word spoken in darkness. Psalm 109 stands before us like a trembling but fearless prayer. It does not pretend that evil is gentle. It does not decorate injustice with soft language. It brings pain into the light of God's presence and refuses to carry it alone. The psalmist does not answer cruelty with cruelty, nor lies with lies. Instead, he places his cause into the hands of the righteous judge, saying in his heart, "You, O Lord, know my frame. You see the wounds I cannot explain. Be my defense. This is our covering today, not silence, not revenge, not despair, but holy surrender. When evil words surround us, we do not weave armor from anger. We clothe ourselves with prayer. We wrap our trembling hearts in the promise that no curse spoken by human breath is stronger than the blessing breathed by God. For what is a lie before the face of eternal truth? What is slander before the voice that called the world into being?" The prayer of Psalm 109 teaches us to stand wounded yet unbroken, accused yet not abandoned. It teaches us to speak honestly to God, even when our voice shakes, even when our faith feels thin as smoke. And in doing so, we discover that the Lord himself becomes our shield. He does not always silence the enemy at once, but he silences their power to define us. He does not always remove the storm, but he places his peace within the storm's reach. So today, when harsh words pursue you, do not gather them into your heart. Lift them upward. Let God weigh them. Let God answer them. Let God undo what hatred has spoken, and may his mercy be the garment around your shoulders, his truth the wall around your life, and his justice the song that rises when every lying voice has grown tired. God is our shield against harmful words. This truth is not learned in days of ease, but in nights when the heart is restless and the mind replays the voices that wounded it. There are wounds that bleed and wounds that remain hidden, and often the hidden ones ache longer. Stones may strike the body and be healed by time, but words pass through the ear and settle in the soul, shaping how a person stands before the mirror of their own conscience. Many walk upright in the sight of others, yet bend inward beneath the weight of accusations that were never true, judgments that were never just, and curses spoken by lips that did not know the cost of their speech. In such a world, the faithful are not spared the sharpness of tongues. Even the righteous are named wicked, and those who seek peace are called troublemakers. The psalmist knew this sorrow, and his prayer rose from the dust like a trembling flame, not to consume others, but to find shelter in God. When evil words are spoken, they often arrive quietly, dressed as truth or boldly, clothed in anger. Some are whispered behind doors, others shouted in open places, but all carry a weight that presses upon the heart. A person may forgive, yet the memory lingers. A person may remain silent, yet the wound speaks within them. The soul asks, "Who will speak for me when I am misjudged? Who will stand when I am named what I am not?" The world answers with noise, advice, argument, and revenge. But Scripture answers with God. Not as a distant observer, but as a living shield, standing between the fragile heart and the storm of falsehood. Psalm 109 does not hide the pain of being surrounded by hostile speech. It does not pretend that the faithful are untouched by cruelty. It admits that hatred sometimes comes without cause, that loyalty is repaid with suspicion, and kindness with slander. The psalmist stands wounded before God and does not decorate his pain with proud silence. He brings it openly, like a child bringing broken pieces to a father who knows how to mend what human hands cannot. In doing so, he teaches that the first defense against evil words is not resistance, but refuge. Before the mouth speaks back, the soul must kneel. God is not deaf to injustice spoken aloud. Every careless sentence, every deliberate lie, every twisting of truth enters his hearing as clearly as prayer enters his temple. Human courts may fail to listen, and human companions may grow tired of hearing the same sorrow, but God does not become weary of the voice that seeks him. When the faithful are accused falsely, they are not alone in the courtroom of existence. The judge of all stands nearer than breath. He does not merely record what is said, he weighs it. He does not merely observe the wound, he tends it. He does not merely promise justice, he becomes protection even before justice is seen. A shield does not remove the enemy, but it stands between the weapon and the body. So it is with God. Often the cruel voice continues, the rumor spreads, the lie travels faster than truth, yet the soul hidden in God is not pierced in the same way. The words strike, but they do not rule. They approach, but they do not reign. They sound loudly, but they do not define. The faithful person begins to learn a holy separation between what is said about them and what is known about them by God. In that space, peace is born, not loud peace, not triumphant peace, but quiet, enduring peace that does not depend on the approval of crowds. There is a deep mystery in how God shields his people. Sometimes he changes circumstances, sometimes he changes hearts, but often he changes the weight of words. What once crushed the spirit becomes lighter. What once echoed endlessly grows faint. The same sentence spoken in hatred loses its authority when the soul hears another voice speaking truth more deeply. For God does not only defend from outside, he defends from within. He writes his verdict in the conscience of his servant. You are known, you are seen, you are not what they say. This is why prayer becomes more than a habit, it becomes shelter. In prayer, the wounded heart does not argue with shadows, but rests in light. The soul ceases its struggle to correct every misunderstanding and begins to trust that truth does not need frantic defense, it needs time and God. The psalmist does not demand immediate silence from his enemies. He asks for God's presence in the noise. He does not ask to be made powerful. He asks not to be abandoned. This humility itself becomes armor, for pride is easily pierced, but surrender is difficult to wound. There are moments when harmful words come not from strangers, but from those once trusted. These wounds are sharper, for they cut through memory as well as flesh. A friend's voice, once gentle, becomes a blade. A familiar name becomes a source of fear. The heart trembles not because of what was said alone, but because of who said it. In such sorrow, human comfort often fails. Advice becomes thin, and explanations become dust. Yet God remains unchanged. He is not confused by divided loyalties, nor misled by broken stories. He sees the whole shape of the heart, not only the fragments others describe. When the faithful learn to run to God instead of defending themselves endlessly, a strange freedom begins to grow. The soul grows lighter. The need to be understood by everyone fades, replaced by the certainty of being known by one. This does not make the person careless about truth or indifferent to justice, but it roots them in something deeper than reputation. They begin to live from God's word about them rather than the world's sentence over them. And this is a great strength, though it appears weak to those who worship noise. Psalm 109 does not teach hatred, it teaches trust in divine judgment. It places the burden of vengeance where it belongs, in the hands of the one who sees without distortion. To entrust God with the answer to evil words is not cowardice, it is wisdom. It refuses to allow injustice to shape the heart into the image of injustice. It refuses to let bitterness become a second enemy within. The faithful person says, "I will not become what wounded me." This decision is itself a form of victory, though it is quiet and unseen. The shield of God is not made of iron, but of truth, not formed by force, but by faithfulness. It does not shout, but it endures. Those who hide beneath it may still feel the wind of cruelty, but they are not carried away by it. They may hear lies, but they do not drink them. They may be surrounded by misunderstanding, but they are not emptied of dignity. Their identity is guarded by a hand that does not tremble. There are seasons when God's protection feels invisible. The enemy still speaks, the heart still aches, sleep still escapes. In such nights, faith is no longer an idea but a small flame cupped by trembling hands. Yet even then, God remains a shield, not always a wall that blocks all sound, but a presence that prevents despair from becoming king. The faithful rise again, not because the voices stopped, but because God did not leave. Over time, something holy forms within those who entrust their defense to God. They become slower to judge, careful with their own words, gentle with broken hearts. They learn the cost of speech and choose silence when silence is merciful. They learn the weight of truth and speak it with humility. Their wounds become teachers, not masters. Their scars become witnesses that God guards what humans easily harm. Thus the prayer of Psalm 109 continues in every generation, not as a cry for destruction, but as a declaration of trust. It says, "To the heavens and the earth, that harmful words do not have the final authority." It declares that identity is not written by anger, nor destiny shaped by lies. It proclaims that God stands near the poor in spirit, the falsely accused, the misunderstood, the silent sufferer, and places his own name upon them as a seal no slander can erase. And so the faithful walk forward, not untouched but covered, not unscarred but protected, not celebrated by all but held by God. They carry within them a quiet cert. Ain't he stronger than accusation, deeper than rumor, and older than hatred? That the Lord is their defender, their witness and their shield, and that no word spoken in darkness can overthrow what he has spoken in light. Prayer breaks the power of darkness and restores peace, not by loud force or sudden spectacle, but by a quiet authority that does not borrow its strength from the world. Darkness is not only found in violent acts or open rebellion, it often hides within intentions, travels through speech, and settles into the heart through repeated wounds. Many carry a shadow within them that was not born from their own sin, but from words spoken over them in anger, envy, or careless cruelty. These words become like seeds planted in wounded soil, growing into fear, shame, distrust, and bitterness. The soul begins to speak to itself with the voice of its accusers, repeating their judgments in the silence of the night. Thus darkness does not merely surround a person, it begins to speak from within them. Prayer interrupts this slow and hidden work. It is not merely the reciting of sacred language, but the lifting of the wounded self into the presence of God. When the soul prays, it steps out of the narrow room where pain echoes endlessly and enters a wide place where truth has space to breathe. Even when prayer is weak, even when words fail and only sighs remain, God receives it as speech formed by the Spirit. Darkness depends upon isolation, but prayer draws the heart into communion, and what stands in the light of God cannot remain entirely under the rule of shadow. There is a kind of silence that heals and a kind that destroys. The silence of despair closes the mouth and teaches the heart to expect nothing. But the silence of prayer opens the soul, even when the lips barely move. In such stillness, God begins to work in ways unseen. He does not always remove the enemy at once, nor erase the memory of pain, but he weakens the hold it has over the heart. The memory remains, but its poison fades. The wound remains, but it no longer commands the future. Darkness feeds on repetition. A lie spoken once wounds, but a lie remembered daily builds a prison. Prayer interrupts this cycle by offering the heart another voice to listen to. Slowly, the inner language changes. Where accusation once lived, truth takes root. Where fear ruled, trust begins to grow like a small plant through cracked stone. The person does not forget what happened, but they forget to live under its authority. This forgetting is not weakness, but healing. Peace does not arrive as a sudden absence of trouble, but as a presence that stands within trouble. The world imagines peace as silence after war, but God often gives peace during the battle. It is the ability to breathe when the air is heavy, to sleep while questions remain unanswered, to walk forward while wounds are still tender. Prayer trains the heart to recognize this peace, not as emotion, but as a steady weight of mercy resting upon the soul. Those who pray under the burden of darkness do not always feel strong. Often they feel fragile, uncertain, and tired. Yet prayer does not require strength, it creates it. The act of turning toward God again and again, even with trembling hands, becomes a quiet resistance against despair. Darkness says, "You are alone." Prayer answers, "I am seen." Darkness says, "This pain will define you." Prayer answers, "God has named me His." Darkness says, "You will never rise." Prayer answers, "The Lord is my lifter." This exchange does not always happen in clear sentences. Sometimes it is only a tear falling in silence. Sometimes it is a name whispered in exhaustion. Sometimes it is anger poured out before God with honesty that surprises even the one praying. Yet none of this is wasted. God does not reject broken language. He understands the grammar of sorrow. Over time, prayer reshapes the inner world. The heart that once expected harm begins to expect mercy. The mind that once rehearsed fear begins to remember promises. The body itself learns a different rhythm, breathing more slowly, sleeping more deeply, standing more firmly. Peace settles not as a visitor, but as a resident. It does not erase all sorrow, but it prevents sorrow from becoming sovereign. Darkness loses its power when it can no longer control the meaning of suffering. Prayer places suffering within a larger story, one written by God rather than by cruelty. Pain becomes a chapter, not the title. Loss becomes a season, not an identity. The soul begins to understand that what was meant to destroy has been carried into the presence of a Redeemer who does not waste wounds. Even anger, when brought into prayer, is transformed. Left alone, anger hardens into bitterness. Brought before God, it becomes a plea for justice, a cry for restoration, a refusal to accept evil as final. God does not despise such prayer. He shapes it, purifies it, and returns it as strength that does not poison the heart. Thus prayer does not deny darkness, it disarms it. There are moments when prayer feels empty, when words fall like dry leaves and the heavens appear silent. These moments test the soul more than suffering itself. Yet even here prayer is working. For faith is not proven by comfort, but by persistence. To pray without reward is to declare that God is worthy even when He is hidden. This declaration weakens darkness more than many victories, for it removes its greatest weapon, despair. Peace grows slowly, like a tree whose roots deepen before its branches spread wide. At first it is fragile, easily disturbed by noise or memory. But as prayer continues, it thickens, hardens, becomes shade for others as well as shelter for oneself. The once wounded soul becomes a resting place for the weary, a gentle voice for the fearful, a living testimony that darkness does not have the final word. Thus prayer becomes more than a response to suffering, it becomes a way of life. The heart learns to turn toward God instinctively as a flower turns toward light, and in this turning, darkness is continually undone, not by violence but by endurance, not by shouting but by trust, not by human wisdom but by divine nearness. In the end, the peace that prayer restores is not fragile like glass, but strong like deep water. It carries sorrow without sinking, memory without chains, and hope without pride. It does not boast of victory, but it lives as proof of it. And wherever such peace dwells, darkness finds no home, for it cannot breathe in the presence of a heart that rests in God.